Hello, everyone. Just hang tight a little bit. We're just waiting for a couple more people to log in. We'll get started in a couple of minutes, so please stand by. Thank you. Hello again, those that are just arriving. We'll begin in a few seconds here, so just hang tight and we'll begin momentarily. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Greg Leveris, and I'd like to welcome you to the Ask Greg series. This is episode 7, and we'll be talking about managing simple and complex moves. I'm with Horizon Business Development, and basically I'm an Archibus aficionado. I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm always here to discuss product capability and share experiences with the broad functionality of Archibus. So before we get started, here's a couple of guidelines. As you probably are aware if you've been to these, we start you on mute to keep the background noise to a minimum. At the completion of the presentation, we'll open up the meeting for questions. You can submit your questions in the question box during the course of the meeting, and that appears on the control panel for GoToMeeting. And so just go ahead and click on that and write your question. We'll pick it up at the end of the session. And you can also raise your hand and we can unmute you, and you can directly speak your question. And again, that is just going ahead and raising your hand so that you know that you want to speak. What we of course want to do is showcase those capabilities of Archibus, as by now you realize it's a very broad and deep set of applications, and so we want to share bits and pieces of it with you to get you a better understanding of what it can do and see where it might help your organization. We ourselves have a lot of knowledge and experience, and we also learn from our customers in terms of what they do. This also represents an opportunity to engage with other Archibus users. One of the things that you'll be seeing from us in the coming future is more user groups, where we'll actually be having live forums where we can meet with folks. So we'll augment that with this Ask Greg series. At the end of the day, when we complete these sessions will be posted to YouTube, and I'll talk to you about that at the end of the session. And our overall goal is to grow a community forum for us to get to know each other. So today, let's talk about what we're going to do. We'll talk about what's question for people on their mind. We're going to cover 3 main topics: how to go about requesting moves, what is the move process in general, and then how would you go about creating trial scenarios, and then we'll wrap up this session. So today's question of the day is, how do I do move scenario planning with Archibus? And I think I have a couple of good examples of showing you some simple scenarios and offering the opportunity to look at some others as well. So let's get down to the process of requesting moves. And like everything else that's service oriented within the facilities organization, these requests come to us in many ways. They come to us by the phone. They come to us walking in the hallway, or people visiting our offices. They come through surveys where people happen to find out that something's changed since the last time they checked the data, or they might come from an email request. So there's any sort of ways that you can do that. And what Archibus has endeavored to do is help automate that process and provide a means to document that from the beginning through to the end of the process. So for this section, we're going to focus on the whole process of requesting moves. And there's generally 2 ways that Archibus does it. There's a new workplace portal that has some very nice, simple, easy to use forms for making a request. And of course, there's the tried and true Archibus Web Central, which also provides a mechanism for submitting requests. Now, we're going to be covering 2 types of move requests. One is the individual move, and one is the group move. We'll start with the individual employee move, and it's pretty straightforward. What we're going to do is take a look at how Archibus makes it simple. And this time around, what I'm going to do is start with the traditional Archibus request to move employee form. And this is very easy. You just identify the employee. In this case, we'll go find Billy Page, and we're going to ask to relocate Billy. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off for the time being. So let's resume here. Okay, sorry, pause there for a second. A point of contact within the department makes the request. They ask the date to be moved. That doesn't mean you have to agree to it, but that's at least a starting point to work with. We identified the location. We use the floor plan to enable people to pick where they want to seat somebody. And then they go ahead and create the ticket, review all of the basic details, which is pretty much the from to location. Archibus does augment with allowing to ask questions that might need to be filled out, whether you need an office key or a phone moved or a nameplate given. It all depends on what you need to do in your move process. And then you officially request the move, or that person requests the move, and it is now activated within the system. Now, the other way to do it is using the new workplace portal. It's even a quicker, simpler way. We're going to go find this guy, Greg Alevris, and see if we can get him relocated. We're going to move that person, or Greg, over to the TGD Technology Center as well. We want to move him to the 4th floor. And, we'll let the facility planners give us the rest of the details once they go. So we don't have to stipulate a room, and you can certainly pick one, but I like letting the facility planners do that kind of stuff. So let's go back in and let's see how the facility planners just, see what comes across in their system. We'll be covering this on a few different occasions, but the move console is the place where we track and process moves. You can see that we created 2 move requests, one for Billy Page with the location already identified, room 4727. And then for, argument's sake right now, we would just auto approve that ticket. And then the remaining ticket is Greg Alevris. And this one's a little bit different because, again, remember, we just put the building and floor that we wanted to move Greg to. So we'll let the planner pick a room location from the floor plan. And again, once they've checked and verified all of the details, they would also auto approve the ticket, and we'd have a good start to the process. So that is as simple as it is for creating moves. Either we do it through the portal or we do it directly from Web Central, depending on what your workflow and process is. And here we can see that once we approve them, the system automatically advances them to the next stage of the process, which in this case is approved, where we can do some more updates before we issue for the movers to get going. Now, the other side of the activity, of course, is managing group moves. This is where you're moving a multiple set of employees, so it becomes more of a project-oriented move, and you want to schedule moving 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 employees, at one fell swoop, depending on what you want to do. Now, Archibus also provides 2 ways to do it. This time, we'll start from the workplace portal. Using the dashboard interface, we'll go ahead and start the process. And so you can see that you have access to the number of employees in the group. In this case, we can actually designate a group move. We could say how many employees we want to move as part of the group, pick the employees from here, and for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to pick one of the employees. Candace is one of the members of that particular department, customer support. And again, we're going to move them to the TGD Technology Center on the 4th floor. And we'll go ahead and just submit that group move project. And I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and use the traditional Archibus to create a group move to see how that gets built out. Because again, there is a way of requesting a group move. And as I said, Archibus does this in a project fashion. So you actually create a new project to do the move. So we'll designate the project, basically facilities group move. And the goal is to relocate facilities to the building NCO5. So we fill in all the relevant details. Again, we pick the appropriate designee from the department. We know this to be Ginger Aber. And we designate the time that we'd like to do the move, which is the end of November. And typically, sometimes these are done over the weekend. Now that we have the project defined, we need to say what employees are going to move. So in this case, we designate from facilities construction, and we're going to pick them up from the HQ building. And then we say, go find all the employees in the HQ building that are in facilities construction, add them to the move order. They have their own move tickets, but they're all grouped under one move project. And now we have the move console, which shows the 2 new group moves. And one of those group moves is this one here. And then the other one was the one I created from the that department. And again, if I want to add more employees to it, I simply go ahead and identify all the people in business development across the entire organization, pick those employees, and we've just added 7 additional employees to the move. And now we've updated our moves, and of course we, have completed the process. So that's the way of doing moves. We can set up individual moves. We can set up project-based moves. Great. So now what is the process that Archibus does, and why do we do this process? Well, one is certainly to help us manage the timing and use of our resources. And 2 is to make sure as we complete the process, our systems and information are updated. Oftentimes, when you're not using a move process, you will go ahead and execute these moves, and you may not update the records in the database as to who sits where, for instance, until some later date. With Archibus, managing the process allows you to close out those moves and actually complete them. And the way to do that is with the move console. The move console is that central location where you can follow the full process of all moves from beginning to end. And what's nice is that Archibus manages both those individual employee moves or any of the project group moves that you've set up in the system. So you can click on any project and proceed to update and manage any of the details associated with that project. So let's take a look at just updating employee moves. And to kind of make sure we understand what happens here, because I want you to understand the impact of the process, we'll go look for those 2 people that we identified. Billy Page is been located here, and we actually moved him. And now we're going to do the same thing for Greg Alevris. And bottom line, Greg is actually coming in new, but doesn't have a location. So we're going to complete out the move for Greg. And in order to do that, we go grab the move ticket that we set up for Greg. And we, again, fill in the details. So just to verify, we're going to go ahead and pick a location. And now that I've done that, I can issue the move. And the reason that we issue is that this gets to the movers to make sure that we've communicated with the appropriate people that it's time to pick the boxes up, get the person relocated, coordinate with IT, coordinate with the voice people, security, whatever you need to do to make sure that it's completed. And somewhere along the line, I must have hit a button I shouldn't have. So let me speed that up here. All right, so we were just going through the process of updating location. Sorry, I must have hit a button and skipped ahead to the next slide, and I didn't want to do that. So as I was saying, we issue the move. And, of course, we advance the move to the next phase. And since we have a lot of moves in process, maybe we want to go find the one for Greg and filter so we can get to it very quickly. So there it is. We can see it's in the issued and process category. And the thing that we simply need to do is complete and verify, which is our way of saying the move has been done. We've checked to make sure it's been done. We've updated the status. And the last thing that we need to do is close out the move. This last step is important in the Archibus move process because it enables us to update the employee record for Greg and any of the space data and allocations. Because now if we go back and look at where Greg Allever sits, and we say find, this time it'll find that we've moved Greg to that location that was designated part of the move. So the nice thing about the move process is making sure that we not only manage the process for doing it, but we also make sure that we manage the change in the data that happens after the move is completed. Oftentimes projects are moving so quickly, people forget to do that, and it takes a while for the systems to catch up, or you need to hire additional resources. And for me, I've always had a strong belief that you want to embed as much of the data management as you can within the actual processes of managing facilities. So let's look at it from a group move point of view. This one, I'm actually going to introduce something additional to you about how to do a group move. What I'm going to do is actually start a move from the space console, which is a nice feature that has been there for a little bit of time. So the idea is that you want to relocate people, but you're not sure where. Well, why not do that in the space console? Now, I meant to grab floor 04, but instead grabbed 05. Let's go back and get 04 here. Now, what I want to do is bring some people over from facilities planning. So I want to be able to find all employees across all buildings and floors. I'm looking for anybody that is part of facilities planning. And now that I have these people, I'm going to set up a move project. And what I'm going to do is grab a few of the employees to get us started. So we'll get Rigoberto and Martin and Tisha and Arusha. And we'll place those people in what Archibus calls the waiting room. That'll allow us to pick and place them, drag and drop them, if you will, onto the floor plan. So I'm going to do my initial plan here. And we're going to place those people into those spaces. So we'll just drag and drop the employees onto the floor plan right away. Now, for those of you that are used to using the space console and doing occupancy, certainly I could do a commit and automatically change, but I want to do and plan this as a move order. So I'm going to actually create a new move order, which is really a move project. And that move project is going to be the facility planning group move. And again, we'll just fill in the appropriate details. And you can see that, of course, we're always validating data where we're tied to certain tables, in this case, the buildings table. Again, we're going to use our traditional requester. Like before, when we created those moves, we're going to use the weekend of the 27th of November for planning and executing the move. So I've done now. The nice thing about this is we have not changed anything about the occupancy. Those people still reside where they do, but now I have a move project. And if I go in and look at the move console and I go into my requested projects, you can see I have the facilities planning group move that I just created in the move console. Those are the 5 people. We have the from and to locations. And assuming that I want to proceed without going through any sort of additional planning, I can go ahead and approve that project. And later on, I can, once I'm ready to do so, I can issue the move to the mover. So again, this is more to show you what happens when the move is done. So we're simply going to issue the move. We assume the locations we've designated are all the ones that we would like. This will be important to some later demos when we add some more people to the move and do another one. And of course, what we want to do is go in and find that. Now we have a lot of move projects currently in the works, so we're going to make it easy to find using our filtering tools. And here's that project again. Now, the distinction here is we can't just update and close the project. We actually have to verify that each of the people is moved. And I could literally do that one move order at a time, but I'm going to group select all the moves. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to complete selected, which enables me to make sure that I have completed and verified each of the moves, and which now enables me to complete and verify the move project. If I hadn't done that, I would not be able to close out the move because it would recognize that we haven't verified those details. I update that status. And as I said before, in order to update the locations, we need to physically go in and close out the move. Now, just to verify that that's actually happened, we'll return back to the Space console. And here in the Space console, we'll go back to the 4th floor. And we'll zoom in to the section of the floor that we did the update plan to. And if we look at the occupancy plan that we have set up, those names are now part of the updated floor plan. So the move was closed out and all the employees that I placed were properly located on the floor plan. And so that gives you a look at the general move process from beginning to end. Now, typically when you're doing group moves, it's not always going to be so straightforward. You're not always going to know exactly where everybody is, and you may have to play around a little bit to create a variety of different scenarios. And Archibus gives you the ability to create different scenarios without, again, affecting any of the, the real, standard data that you have, which I think is a big benefit, because I've known over time people have tried a variety of systems and they've updated them and inadvertently updated the correct, the current environments without actually completing the move process. Now, there's a lot of things you can do within move management to make those changes. Some of them involve, making red lines to the floor plans and updating the way things look. And then the others involve literally going in and making modifications to the AutoCAD floor plans themselves and applying those red lines so that you can physically make changes and then merge them back into the new floor plan. For this today, I'm just going to focus on the simplicity of doing, for lack of a better word, box moves, because as I've talked to many of you now, the idea is that you're setting up standard footprints for your organization, and the idea is to move people, not necessarily constantly go through renovations, helping save tons of money and time. So let's go ahead and do that process. So I'm going to do this soup to nuts. I'm going to literally go in. I've already created a move project for us to be working on. This is going to be kind of move 2 of the facilities planning group. And what I want to do is I've identified some people that I want to move on top of the ones that I already did. Now, one of the nice features that Archibus added in one of the recent releases here is the ability to examine group moves. So one of those features includes identifying the from to highlights. And so we know in our moving exercise, we're moving people from the SRL building to the NCO5 building. And you can see the rooms highlighted in yellow and the rooms highlighted in green. Yellow is from and green is to. So you can see the comparison of what is changing on your floor plans. In this case, we're focusing strictly on occupancy. Now let's go back in and do some scenario activities. Now for the starters, I've already done a couple of scenarios. So scenario one was based on the initial mapping of employees. And if I look at the floor plan, you can see the names highlighted in blue are the names that I've placed on the floor plan. If you look at scenario two, it's the same group of names. And so we'll go back and look at scenario two here, but I've moved them to different locations. So I haven't done anything different. I've just looked at an alternative layout pattern for the people that I'm trying to place on the floor plan. Let's go ahead and create a third scenario for us to play with. And of course, being very creative, we'll call it scenario three. And for scenario three, we're going to go ahead and try an alternative layout pattern. So again, we'll use the current layout. And so the initial plan was scenario one, and that's still the foundation because that's what the mapping says. Let's come up with a third scenario. We're going to put people in different rooms. And again, this is not meant to be, the right move. Is just to show you the ability to create alternatives. And we'll even use some of the walls along the windows there just to give us a different flavor here. So again, I've created a new scenario. Now, in order to make it stick and make that scenario be independent, I do have to commit those changes. So those changes are now part of scenario three within the system. Now, in order, after I've done all my evaluation and I looked at all three scenarios, let's say I want to make scenario three the final action. All I have to do is update the move project. And when I update the move project, the two locations all becomes this group of rooms right here. And so what I'm going to do is go back to my group moves examine process just to show you the flavor. We'll go back and find the facility group move 2. And we'll do the from to highlights. And if you recognized from the initial layout pattern, you can see the rooms highlighted in green are based on that third scenario that we worked on, where we were using the 2 offices along the windows plus the 4 workstations down below. And that is our current plan that we're going to be using. So we've made scenario 3 our project activity. So let's go ahead and return back to the Move console. And again, we're going to pretty much repeat what we did before. So this should go, fairly quickly. We're at the approved state. We want to issue the move. We want to get it in the hands of the movers so that they can do all their final planning activities. And then, once we, get it in the issued sense, the people want to be able to get to that group move that we were working on. And, as we've done before, we just simply need to complete and verify. And now we can do the move project. And finally, we can save that change. And when we're ready, close it out and update the status of all of those employees that we relocated. And if I return to the space console, and go back to the 4th floor, excuse me. and look at the employees, you can see off to the right that those location of employees have been designated to the places that I have. So all of the employee locations now reflect the completion of the move project, and everybody is where they're supposed to be. So again, that's using scenarios to help us look at alternatives and determine which ones make the most sense. So let me go ahead and pop my camera back on. And let's go ahead and just, kind of wrap up. So for me, Archibus, has always provided the ability to manage individual and group moves. And especially with Web Central and the console, I think the process has been pretty straightforward. It's a single one-stop shop to make sure that you follow all of the moves from the request date all the way through completion and close so that you can update your data. And along the way, if you need to, especially for group moves, is develop scenarios as to look at options of what makes the most sense. And as you know, it's not just about finding the right space, it's finding the right pattern of moving employees and coordinating with the department managers to make sure they like the alignment of people on the floor plan. So with that, let's open it up for questions.
I'm just waiting to see if any questions are coming in. Okay, here's one. It's asking when you're doing the move and you've told the system, told the system what to input, like whether to move like the phone or different assets, if that can be printed, like there can be a list printed for moving day so that each like cubicle, that information.
So the answer to your question is yes, that information can be printed. What we did for the last Ask Greg session is we actually posted some supplemental information, and we'll do the same thing. So I'll help identify where that stuff is so you can see an example of it.
Okay. Can assets go with the move? So like special chairs with a person. So like associating a chair to a person.
Yeah, so where you have situations where there are assets associated with a person, when you move that, there's one of two ways. I think you can say move equipment or move furniture, and it will actually grab those items and attach that to the move ticket and make that part of the move. So not only are you having to complete the person move, but you also have to complete the movement of the asset, whether it be a computer, phone, or a piece of furniture that goes with them. The other is you could create a separate move ticket for the piece of furniture if you choose to do so.
Okay, great. I don't see any other questions at the moment, so
I'm going to ask a question to the audience, and if anybody wants to raise their hand, I'm just curious to know, are there people that are using move management now as part of their overall process for managing space and occupancy? If they just hit their raise their hand button, and just curious to see how many people do that. It's kind of an impromptu survey. Sorry, I didn't think of that beforehand, Shoshana.
I don't see any hands raised.
Oh, okay. Well, it's definitely something I think, as especially as we get back to work in terms of coordinating where people are with your back to work strategy, is probably a lot of movement's going to take place. If you're not using something like this now, it's definitely something you should be talking to your business and project managers from from Horizon that can help you with this. So there's no other questions, I take it?
No other questions.
All right, so what's next? Well, good news for everybody. We've done a good job. We've gone through 7 episodes of the series, and what we're going to do is take a break for the remainder of the year, because the next one would be kind of close to the holidays, and I'm sure everybody's going to be pretty busy getting ready in one way or another, depending on what happens with social distancing, but still have a lot of activities. So we will schedule our next session in January, and we'll get word out in early January and begin the process all over again. And if you're not familiar, once every 3 weeks on Thursdays at 12 noon, we conduct these sessions. So we'll continue to post them. And along the way, certainly if you have any questions, don't hesitate to submit an email to askgreg@horizonsolutions.com. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for spending the time with us, and enjoy the rest of the year, and let's hope for better things to come in 2021. Look forward to seeing everybody in the new year. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.